Hello, Generals. This is Fiasco back with Ultimate General Civil War. We are playing the Union Major General um, campaign Let's Play, and the army's been cleaned up and prepared. We organized a bit for this Battle of Second Bull Run or Second Manassas. So, just as a quick reminder, Second Bull Run / Second Manassas challenges the Union Army with engaging an entrenched Confederate position, and depending on the length of the battle, if it goes to its second day, which I would like it to, a flanking Confederate force that appears somewhere around this way. And they're in really, really phenomenal defensive terrain. So if I take all my stuff, so yeah, this is not accurate in terms of what's going to be totally here, but this is the army we've got. So we've cleaned the army up and prepared everything after the Battle of Thoroughfare Gap. First Corps looks more or less the same as it did. I've transferred some infantry from Second Corps up to keep First Corps entirely experienced in rifled divisions. Every division has an attached artillery. We've got one counter battery, two counter battery units, infantry support howitzer, and a field gun. That trend will continue across the rest of the Corps. We've got our cavalry division, our first cavalry division here, and then also the sniper units and the skirmishers in First Corps. Second Corps is basically a mirror of First with just lesser experienced units. We've got long range, short range artillery, wireds 3 inches, counter battery and a 10-pounder unit, is a skirmishing infantry unit and a sniper infantry skirmishing unit, and then a new proto cavalry division. So these are brand new units. That is one of the risks that I think going into Second Bull Run. So First Corps and Second Corps are mirrors of each other. However, I Corps is significantly more experienced, and so I Corps will be handling part of the fight there. 2 Corps is a mirror. It's just different guns, but for the most part, the same idea. I Corps is entirely Harper's Ferries, with the exception of 2nd Division has Enfields. Harper's Ferries and Enfields across the board in 2 Corps, except for 2 units with 55s. And basically, just there was a lot of trickling down of guns from experienced units would get Harper's Ferries, and then everybody else would kind of just trickle down from there. And then 3 Corps is 100% green, fresh troops, which makes me a bit nervous. And then I'm bringing an understrength 3rd and 4th Division. These could fit up into 3rd Division, but my thought process was I wanted to give the 4th Division commander a chance to gain some experience on the battlefield as well. So these are green units. I'm not going to be able to rely on them to do a lot, and that's a concern. But they're following the general model. 4th Division isn't set up yet. I don't have enough resources to throw up another Cav division, and I don't know if I need a 3rd Cav division, frankly. And then we have the largest infantry unit is completely brand new, and they're using smoothbores and their artillery guards. That's all they're going to do. But otherwise they're doing the job as far as that's concerned. And we've not used the rep reward on the parrot guns. I've got the parrot guns I want for the time being, and the armory seems to supply you with enough, and we've got enough money at this point that I'd actually like to preserve the rep reward for whatever rifles are going to be available on the other end of Second Bull Run, and all of that. So the battle plan is essentially the general in I Corps and 3 Corps are both maneuver or speed generals, and the general in 2 Corps, Fiasco, is an ammo general. So I'm going to be deploying 2 Corps as the vanguard, and their job is simply going to be establish our front line and hold. And then I'm putting 1 and 3 Corps as maneuver or speed-based generals in order to rapidly get them into the fight. So yeah, I like any other like any of these major battles, I'm gonna record the preamble, record the postamble while I'm playing, and then I'm gonna fast forward the actual battle itself at double speed when I play it back, and I'll dub over a commentary track when the time comes. So without further ado, this is second bull run, and this is Fiasco. I'll see you guys in a few seconds. And and we're back. Holy hell, this is a slog. I a little bit forgot how long this battle is. So in this, I know I usually skip over the preamble, but this gives me a minute to talk about kind of what's going on. So in the opening big portion of the battle, the historical event, Jackson, probably. I know Jackson in coordination with Lee, but I forget the order. I think it was Jackson. So Jackson skirmishes here in this little forest just outside of the town, and the idea is near Grovetown. The idea is that he knows the Union will like seize on it and attack. So there's an opportunity to get a lot of your guys killed in these woods here, and if you can claim the territory early, I suppose there's an opportunity for you to get some kills, but it just, I don't know, to me it doesn't seem like it's worth it. So this particular portion of time is being accelerated like 350 times or something just to get us past it, because I'm just going to camp. I briefly, as you're seeing on the screen, I briefly flirt with the idea of trying to flank the woods entirely and go into the town, because it's been long enough since I've played this battle. I don't remember if there's Confederate troops in the town or if they're just in the woods, but I just decided to say screw it. Forest fighting is not a good way to preserve your troops. So the other thing, really quickly before we get too much further, I'm splitting this into 2 videos. This battle was because when at these bigger battles especially, I as a player personally am not very good at games that require a lot of twitch reflexes, so I tend to play either pausing a lot or with a significant portion of the battle on half speed, because I just, I need time to think about what I'm doing and that kind of thing. So, I mean, the recording's 3 hours long or something. So we're going to split it into day 1, and then I'll do another video for day 2. So we're almost done with the accelerated portion where I just wait in the woods. This is not exciting YouTube. We end up doing about 6-1, which is pretty good. The opening phases of the battle, the first day goes exceptionally well. The early part of day 2 actually goes exceptionally well too. I'm surprised, and we'll get to it later, I suppose. I'm surprised there's like a flanking element or something that comes in from a different angle than I was expecting, and they take this flag in the back of my field, and it just causes me to like lose my shit. And I launch kind of an overly aggressive attack that costs me maybe 4,000 lives, when I probably could have got away with it for 2, maybe if I'd done the thing, because there was more than enough time for me to round up and kill all the Confederates. So we do get complete total force destruction, and all that kind of fun stuff. But so let's take a look at the day 1. I'm landing out where I want my guys to go, and essentially you'll get a better idea of what I'm shooting for when we actually start the battle. But there is this train track on the upper portion of the screen right now that there are Confederate troops who are going to be in or are in right now. And the entire mission for the vanguard portion of the army, which is 2 corps here, the entire mission is to exploit the fact that the AI will continue to occupy those earthworks along the train tracks, just to punish them for it, essentially. And the vanguard, which is mostly composed of new troops. There's 1 division of veterans, and then the remainder is all newbies or green. They do excellently. They do a great job. The wireds, and I think I've got a unit of wireds, and I've got a unit, right now it's a unit of 3-inchers and a 3 unit of howitzers. They all do fantastic as well. We don't get all of our cav troops until quite a bit further into the day. But yeah, here I'm just pushing everything up and moving to occupy these positions if I can before the Confederates get there. But I'm concerned about force protection as well. So I'm aware that this is a long fight, and I want to limit needless casualties as much as I possibly can. I know that some units are going to take losses. I know I'm going to take hits. With the exception of a handful of brigades that take kind of heavier losses than I would like, the losses taken are relatively light. So I'm pushing into this sort of thin strip and the little village. I'm pushing up against the railroad. I'm trying to make sure that it's expensive for the Confederates to occupy the earthworks near the railroad. And I'm trying to ensure that when I am fighting, I'm doing so from like as much cover as possible. And I'm trying to hit these earthwork brigades with as many units as I can. And this is one of the reasons I keep on saying earthworks are death traps. Just look at how much physical space in terms of width some of these brigades are occupying. And I'm able to shoot at them with 2, 3, 4 units, artillery, all that kind of stuff. It just makes it very hard, even with whatever defensive bonuses they may gain in those woods, even with them. It just makes it nearly impossible to hold those for any serious length of time. And so the opening phase of this battle ends up being a bit of a brawl, just essentially while we're wrestling over control of this line of trenches. And eventually I kick them off the trenches, and at that point in time, the opening phase of the battle is functionally over. Because once they're out, we have a line of fire to them in the open as they're trying to approach. And they take so many losses on the way back to the trenches that once they get to them, they're near morale shock territory if they're not morale shocked already, if they even get to the trenches in the first place. And some units just don't. Some units just like, oh, maybe not. And this is just even triply so once I get more artillery online, when the remainder of 2 Corps, I get reinforcements. I'm forgetting who they're from. I want to say it's 2 Corps. And then there's a moment here where like this unit gets pulled into melee 19th, and I'm not really sure why, because they don't appear to be connecting with anything, and yet there they are. So okay, sure. But yeah, this is a 3-star unit, and I'm just hitting it with a bunch of no-star rookies because I can from enough different directions that eventually it's gonna, if nothing else, take morale penalty to the point where it becomes combat ineffective. That's just the opening phase of the plan. Is I'm gonna make them come and take these trenches again and again and again. Well, not make them; they're gonna do it, and I'm gonna repeatedly punish them for that. And that's the opening phase of the battle. This is one of the mantra things that I talked about a lot in the Confederate playthrough, and then I kind of felt like I was getting repetitive or preachy. And so I've stopped it, as I'm sure you've noticed. So I talk a lot about like try and fight defensively as much as you can. This in this particular war, the way that the soldiers were trained and the way that the guns, how accurate they were relative to people's expectations and everything like that. It was a war that historically kind of very much favored the defender, but like the aggressive defender, if that makes sense. So move quickly to secure some sort of defensible terrain and then force the enemy to come to you, or alternatively cede some otherwise, necessary bit of ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here. Is I'm in forests and I'm shooting them in their trenches, and they got there first, but I'm hitting them from enough size that they break. And once I've taken the initiative, so to speak, of claiming where my line of battle is now, essentially ends up basically being my line of battle for the majority of the first day. Once we have claimed that, that's it. I mean, that's, they don't seriously threaten it ever again. They try. They even make contact for melee a couple of times, but they don't do it. In the opening phase there, I had the supply wagon on the recon point because it was the opening part of the battle. I didn't need to worry about reinforcing or rearming guys. I pull a unit of skirmishers back to stand on the recon point because I do like that visibility and what it offers as far as, kind of being able to see everything else is concerned, and that's nice. This is the last unit on the bottom there that we need to kick off, and then I can sort of realign my position. But you can already see one of their brigades is starting to try and work its way back to the trench works. And the game gives you a lot of opportunities to make a very cautious but profitable engagement on the first day with your vanguard troops because of all this forest and these blocks of buildings are 200% cover and that kind of thing. They're good for that too. So we're now in a position, having kicked them off of the railroad line, that in order to come back to the railroad line, they're going to have to eat at least one volley in the open on the way in. And, my artillery's set up, and they're in a good position to provide defensive support or canister if they get too close, that kind of thing. I push up some skirmishers so they can just get some recon in and kind of see what all's going on. And this is, until we get reinforcements, this is basically my battle plan. Look at the number disparity. Look at the blue-red bar at the top of the screen. I don't have the dudes to do anything else right now. And frankly, their defensive terrain is so excellent that there is not a scenario wherein I can affect any kind of any offensive maneuver at all on this battlefield and expect it to go well. So, having read the ground, so to speak, I'm like, okay, well, let's not throw our guys' lives away. Let's let the artillery get into position. Let's make sure that we're, occupying the best defensive ground we possibly can, and let's just kind of do what we got to do. I keep on pushing skirmishers up because I want to do recon. I'm nervous about that big unit of cav in the upper part of the screen, 1,050 cav dudes. We end up wiping them, but it's a messy process to take. I don't like having things in what will end up being my rear field or my flank. So at some juncture, I do try and take those guys. But yeah, look at that. That's what happens is these guys just occupied that defensive works. They ate a volley. They ate a second volley, and then they just routed. And that's for the early part of the battle. That's basically what happens. So yeah, I don't really have anything else to kind of add about that part. I will say that I am ecstatic with the way the army's performed. Even the new troops, you're not going to really see them get into the fighting until the very tail end of day one and then a significant portion of day two. But even the untested rookies, they do a good job. And like I said, spoiler alert, I get like 6-1, 7-1. I think it's closer to 6. It's on the low end of 6-1. But that's back of the napkin ballpark math. So, take it with a grain of salt and all that. But, this part couldn't possibly go better. This, they just keep on coming in. And what's even better is they come in like 1 and 2 at a time. Like, it's just, this part of the fight couldn't possibly begin to go better. But rifles across the board, with the exception of 3-core, is a lot of smooth bores. I'm going to be probably trying to fix that going into our Antietam campaign. Is all those smooth bores, I can afford to upgrade them now to rifles. And those troops are battle tested. They've been around the block. They know kind of what's up. So 1, 2, and 3-core are all now fighting entities. I need to stand up a 4th Corps just to stand up. And that'll probably be it. I'll probably just limit myself as far as combat units to be 1, 2, and 3 Corps, and then 4 will be ballast units. Yeah, that sounds about right. I can't imagine. I mean, we'll see, I suppose, as the game goes on. I can't imagine needing 4, active combat unit corps. All right, cool. So we're getting our reinforcements. This is, I think, the rest of 3 Corps, or no, it's the beginning of 2 Corps. So, no, it's 3 Corps. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get keep divisions together if I can. So I'm looking at where they come in on the map and who has to walk less, and I realize that 1st Division, I want them in that town, kind of defending my extreme left flank. And I split off the artillery to join the main battle here at this sort of, well, I'm calling it, I guess right now, kind of like the elbow. Because it's the hinge around which the entire battle plan kind of ends up revolving. But yeah, there's this weird thing too where they pull resources from their flank and then they kind of rejigger their battle line. But there's a big, yeah, I get reinforcements. I don't think they've gotten reinforcements. They've decided okay, now we need to take it to the offensive. Perhaps it's a hard-coded thing. I'm not really sure what would preempt them to do this. But frankly, I'm excited because this is a big block of guys coming right at me. I'm also a little nervous because obviously that's a poorly manned front at the moment. So I move Grant down to kind of help with that, and I try and realign some artillery and stuff to try and buffer them for the time being. I've got the snipers just kind of picking off dudes in the trench works. There's a big thrust coming down to this strip of trees on my left flank, and I don't like it, obviously. But it's exactly what I would do in the Confederate shoes, too. So, I mean, I get it. And I start pushing up into this little clump on the Confederate side of the railroads because I want them to. So, what'll be nice if I can get guys there, and I don't think I do. I think I do eventually. I do for sure eventually. The question is, do I do it in this thrust or not? If I can get guys there, it puts me in a position where basically I never have to really worry about them taking that railroad position by the clump of trees near where Grant is. Because I just have enough fire from enough different directions that anybody who tries to take that bit of trench work is going to really be asking for some problems. I think I even push. Yeah, I do. 7th Ordnance, which is a 3-inch unit, ends up getting pushed into that position as well. And they do phenomenally because they're in this position where they can sort of support what becomes my main thrust of effort. It's not even a main thrust of effort. These troops that are in the center with Grant, they don't take offensive movement for a long time. This is a battle that from the Union's perspective is not won via maneuver in the center. I think that it's won in the center, but it's won via defense. So I've realized that the 2 brigades I have on my left can't hold independently, so I fall back into this clump here. I deploy the artillery from 3 Corps, which are also totally green units. I'm pretty sure it's a 12-pound howitzer and maybe a Napoleon unit. No, it's a wired, I think, and a Napoleon unit. That sounds right. I don't think that I do use 12-pound howitzers, but I forget where I use them. I'm probably 3 Corps, actually. Anyway, so I deploy basically whatever I've got to sort of blunt this thrust of theirs, which is dangerous because if they can occupy that strip of trees that exists on my left, I have to attack an entrenched enemy with and this is the scary part, green troops, inexperienced troops, some of whom are using smoothbores, which means I need to get up in their face to do any real damage. And so, yeah, I'm rushing whatever I've got that I think can get into position to push them out of those trees. I need to hold that, and I'm willing to accept some casualties to do it. But it kind of ends up mostly being okay. It's because, like, again, because I'm hitting them from enough different sides that it's not that big a deal. And they only had 3 brigades to throw into the attack, and one of them goes into this entrenched train work position where it just eats canister from Napoleons and 24 pounders. And I mean, those are 2 of the best guns in the game for canister. So, I mean, it's not like they can hold that for a long time. I'm actually like a big fan of the fact that I'm capturing so many Napoleons, because I think, I keep on saying it, I think the Napoleon's a wonderful gun for close range troop support, but I obviously wouldn't use it for anything long range. 20-pound Parrots, wired, they don't like get mega crazy kills, but dollar for boom, like bang for buck, I guess quite literally, as in this particular instance, bang for buck, the wired is just phenomenal. It's cheap, it's readily available in large numbers, it's easy to rearm for low cost from the supply wagon. I think I've got 2, maybe 3 batteries of wireds in 3 batteries of wireds in the army, and they all just do wonderfully. So now we got the rest of 3 Corps in, so we're going to deploy them to support the center effort, and also the effort to take that town to our south. So historically, the Confederates, because just of a logistical concern, and we're getting parts of the 1st Corps as well. These are my ultra vets, makes me happy. So historically, the vets, from a logistical concern perspective, could not typically maintain most of their artillery batteries at larger than 4 guns. They could do so they could do 4, and then they could, where possible, they would get up to 6. And the Union, because obviously of its just massively superior industrial capacity, was frequently able to maintain 6-gun batteries. Now, I'm using the word battery here very specifically. We're supposedly operating with brigades on the field of battle. I am not aware. So another viewer, if you can confirm or deny, I'm not aware if the Union or the Confederacy organized their artillery into units larger than the battery. Now, don't take a step back. There absolutely were, artillery parks, et cetera, so forth and so on. Like Gettysburg, there was, before Pickett's charge, he had a cannonade with like 100 guns firing off. But I don't think that they were organized at larger than the battery level. So that's actually, I don't know. This is me getting off topic from the game, obviously. But in the game, I've got these brigades supposedly of 8 guns. And I'm like, what is that? 3 batteries of 3 guns? Like, how is that supposed to break? Or 3 batteries of 3 guns and one's under strength or something? Or, I wonder how that's supposed to break down. So in the real world, I was in the artillery, and, we had 18 towed howitzers, or airdropped howitzers, in our 1 battalion. We had 3 batteries of 6 in that battalion. And then, obviously support personnel and that kind of thing. So I was not a red leg. I was not a string puller. 13 bang bang. I was one of those support personnel guys. But I mean, I still fell in love with the cannons. Like, we were on an exercise once, and just, I guess for shits, I don't know, exercise once before one of our deployments. They had all 18 guns in a nice straight line, and there was this coordinated signal to fire off over the radio, and all 18 fired at the same time. And man, I'll tell you, that is a sight. That is one of the things. I don't think I've ever seen anything as cool. I don't think I ever will see anything as breathtaking as 18 M777s all firing off all at once. I've seen breathtaking sights in terms of natural beauty, but in terms of man-made, boom, boom. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to see anything ever as cool as that. So the point I'm trying to get at is, like, we're playing with artillery brigades, supposedly. And it's inefficient to take a gun battery larger than 12. So that's what? Or gun brigade larger than 12. That's what? 2 batteries together in a brigade. That's actually not an unrealistic breakdown of a brigade. A British brigade in this period, and also in the Crimean and so forth, was traditionally, I think, between 2 and 3 battalions of infantry. And I would imagine their artillery brigades, if they existed, were the same. 2 independent batteries assembled under a brigade. So this is a huge non sequitur from what's going on in the game, but I've mostly talked about what I'm doing. I'm not doing anything new right now. I do want to comment. I get the opportunity to snipe at Stewart here, and I do. My sniper guys take a shot at him, and I do. I was excitedly trying to think about seeing if I could take that copse of trees to the far left. Because I'm in Groverton right now, which is that town that we were going to be skirmishing in the very, 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 very first skirmish in the game. And I just opted not to fight, basically. I'm in there now. I'm in the Groverton with a bunch of green troops. I wanted to take that copse of trees to the far left, and I just realized, like, I can't do it. So I'm deploying the troops from I Corps in sort of a reserve position, because I want them to operate as a backstop for 3 Corps' fresh troops. I want 3 Corps' troops to be bloodied here. I want them to get experience and fight and all that kind of thing. And I also want to preserve I Corps' soldiers and condition and everything else for the second day of fighting, because I'm going to try and have them do the primary offensive work. I'm going to try and see if I can't get them to be the one that take the flag and take, Stony Ridge, basically. So I'm leaning on 3 Corps' fresh troops to do that right now, but I'm deploying them, I Corps' 1st Division explicitly, on my left near this strip of trees, because if the Confederates press the attack, they will probably be able to break this position, and I need to have troops I can rely on to kind of hold that ground. Yeah. And then on the far right, I've got just a growing artillery park of a bunch of guns in the center and on the far right. And the guns that I've got there are just blasting the defenders. So this is something I'm doing to work towards either later day 1 or day 2. At this point, when I'm playing in the position of me, the player, I would like to go to day 2. I'm not married to the idea. If an opportunity arises to, at low cost, take the flag, I'm gonna. But my primary interest at the moment is degrading Confederate brigades, especially on the flanks. So I suppose I can stop talking about organization of Union and Confederate artillery at larger than battery level, because I don't know, and I'm talking out my ass if I start talking about it. Let's talk about if you're, and of course, like, it's a half an hour into the battle, so it's very likely that if you're watching, you're just kind of clicking through and seeing how things develop or something. If you play this fight, when you play this fight, it's a battle that you win in the center, but you see it on the flanks, if that makes sense. The Confederates continue to throw soldiers at your center, and you bleed them dry in that process. You bleed the brigades in the middle, and then it draws reinforcements from the flanks to continue to reinforce the center. Does that make sense? So you don't move a lot in the center. You just kill a lot. But in draining those brigades in the middle, you draw troops from the flanks towards their center. At least that's what I see happening here. I don't know. This is again, it's been a long ass time since I've played Second Bull Run, and I've never played it since the game was technically like finally released. So version 109 was what they claim was their quote unquote game is done release. And then there's 110 and 111. And those are just they're bug fix patches basically. Like they're not major new features. They're not major anything like that, but there may be quality of life things and a bug fix patch. So one big bug fix patch, and I forget whether it's 110 or 111. Side note, these are version numbers of the game. So when you log into the game on the bottom left of the opening front menu, you'll see the version number 109, 110, 111, whatever you're running. And I don't remember if it was 110 or 111 where they put a patch note that evidently we fixed the ammo traits weren't working. So I mean, okay, but there's also some other things where they tweaked timing on some of the missions, some of the when you get reinforcements, and oh, this is interesting. So on the screen, the Confederates are attacking on their left, my right, up top near the creek here. I've got not nearly enough troops in position to blunt that attack, and so I'm feverishly trying to mobilize fire from enough different sides or enough defenders to blunt that attack. I managed to do it, barely, but I managed to do it. Anyway, but 16th takes a real punch in the nose to make it happen. So it's unfortunate, but I mean, battle happens. You do a lot of your killing in the middle, and in so doing, they pull some troops from their flanks to support the middle because they're afraid you're going to punch up the center, which is the thing that you would do. I mean, a battlefield commander on the real battlefield, not trying to milk this for kills, would absolutely, wherever they saw the weakness, would punch there. They keep attacking my middle because they want the earthworks where those train tracks are, I guess. And they keep drawing, like, look at the screen where I'm attacking with these 3 brigades trying to get that artillery. There's a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of Confederate units just hanging out in these trench works on their far right. And when I later on move to attack that position in the woods, they're not there because they've pulled them to the center to help cover down on some of the losses they've suffered continuously attacking my middle ground. So that's what I'm saying. You don't do a lot of maneuvering in the middle. They keep fighting you, and you keep grinding out these rough attrition fights and gunfire, and that's why I put so much artillery in the middle. They keep coming at me, but you see it. You visualize, or you see the window in which you can strike on the flanks. So the killing, you win the battle in the middle, but you see it on the flanks. And especially down here on my left flank where I've got these green units from 3rd Division or 3rd Corps and now my Cav Division fighting what should be a major, left flank. This should be a huge spoiling attack coming from the Confederate, my Union left, Confederate right. And I just blunt it. I meet it in the woods. I catch them in the river. And even though these guys are firing, they're completely inexperienced troops. They're firing smoothbore weapons against experienced Confederates with, 3-star units, huge brigades. I'm shutting the whole thing down because of the terrain. And once the Cav unit gets into position, we start mopping all this stuff up. And once we mop these units up and shatter all of them and shatter the skirmishers and whatnot, once that happens, the Confederate right flank is wide open. And I move. And so when I talk about if I can take the flag cheaply, I will. That whole swing, that right hook attack of mine, if I could have followed it through, I would have. Because for me, this is the kind of battle where the victory comes from complete and total destruction of the Confederate Army. And I could have accomplished that, probably, with the forces that I end up sending to go into the right hook. Once this Confederate task force in the bottom left of the screen gets wiped out. So the opportunity for victory is actualized in the flanks, but you can make it work because you weaken them in the middle. Great multi-unit cav charge on the cannon unit, which is fantastic. I had initially kind of, I don't want to say written off melee as a cav thing, especially because I think early on I envisioned like a Napoleonic cavalry charge when the horseman was still in a lot of ways the king of the battlefield, or at least the king of offensive maneuver. Was like, why the hell is my cavalry not like instantly routing this artillery? But if you charge in with like 2 units, it works out pretty well. And what's nice about the way that I've got my cavalry division designed right now, where it's 2 dragoons and 1 traditional cav unit, is the dragoons are not ostensibly melee units, but you've got, I guess, and I have to thank Panda Kraut for making me aware of this. There's some sort of benefit or bonus you get when you've got multiples engaging 1 unit. So leading the charge with a traditional cav unit and then following it up with dragoons, even though even though the dragoons are not optimized for melee because they lack a sword and so forth and so on, and the carbine doesn't have particularly excellent melee stats, they still, again, have a melee attack. You lead the charge with, in this case, 3rd cav, and follow it up with 1st and 2nd dragoons. And the end result of that is that all of them get to like dogpile, I guess, on 1 unit. And by the time, the 3rd cav unit makes contact, they're usually routing. And then even though my melee stat isn't all that high, although I should check it, I'm getting a lot of melee kills, even with the dragoons. It's possible the melee stat's actually pretty high. Excuse me. You lead with the traditional cav, you follow with the dragoons. The dragoons can do good enough in melee, especially against a routing unit and charging a routing unit like that. They do more than adequately for the task at hand. And the traditional cav unit does excellent work here as well. So they chase that brigade down. I've got this other one surrounded basically by a bunch of green units. So even though they're green, they surround them. It mostly ends up being okay. So here's what I'm talking about. This is this is like this disastrous. I just don't commit to it. This is the issue for me. I don't commit to the attack across that river. I'm pushing across the river because I'm concerned about that huge unit of cav and also that swarm of skirmishers. But I don't commit with more than 1 or 2 brigades at a time. I don't provide artillery support. And ultimately, it ends up costing me more than it would have as a result. So if I'd sent, say, a full brigade and then 2, like a fresh brigade of 1,300, and then 2 that I'd pulled out of the main line of battle because they'd taken too many losses somewhere else. So, like a full brigade of 1,300 and then 2 smaller brigades that together equaled like maybe 1,600 or something loosely like that. I think that the combined weight of men and firepower would have been enough to knock out those 3 units of skirmishers and the cav unit without taking egregious losses. And then the reason that I like that position is that it gives me a flanking position on the Confederate earthworks, and I don't think that it would be wise to march infantry into the open and try and shoot across the river, but I could take that sniper scum unit and push them up there, or I could take cannons and push them up there, or even just spotting things, even just being able to see shit for my counter battery units. So I guess I could end the fight here. I don't, plot twist. I keep going until the game tells me it's done. I keep fighting all these battles until either I win, or the game tells me, the day's over. And then there's this little adventure here with second Lightfoot and then an infantry unit whose number I can't read, unfortunately, in my post-production software. So I'm watching, and I'm looking at a render, a post-production render of the battle, and it's currently at 200% speed, so it's not at full resolution. So some of these things that on your screen, I think it's 30th Infantry, that on your screen, because that's gone through post-rendering and whatnot, is probably perfectly legible. Unfortunately to me, is kind of hard to read. So, I push again across the river. I support the attack properly this time. 2 brigades over at once. There's artillery nearby to provide support. There's a general and artillery for morale help and just logistical support. And, surprise to fucking surprise, it goes a lot better the second time. It's still not a slam dunk, and that's why I think sending over a 3rd brigade would have really done the trick. But, live and learn. That's basically my lesson. But we're seeing the right hook start to come into effect. And at this point, because I've got the finish in the top right of the screen, I don't know how much time I have. And, with 2020 hindsight, knowing the fact that I do go to the second part of the battle, I probably could have just let them rest. I probably could have just been like, it's fine. We'll get there when we get there. We're going to be there tomorrow anyway. It's fine. But some of these units are at 25. Some of these units are exhausted as far as conditions concerned. And I push them anyway because I'm like, I don't know how much time we have. And so I want to get them into a position where they're blocking. They're in a good blocking position and we can attack. When they're in a good blocking position, and then I'll wait. So you can see a little bit of where the Confederate line of retreat is. Where that brigade on the screen is on that road, there's like a crossing to the river. That's where the Confederate line of retreat is. That's where, once they've decided they're done, they try and run to, and I want to block that road as best I can. Because then at that point in time, in terms of battlefield positioning and everything, I've cut off their line of retreat and they're encircled. Yes, by exhausted troops. Yes, by green troops. Yes, by, people without artillery support. Okay, all those things are true, but they're still cut off. They're still surrounded. They're still blah, 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 blah. So we're successfully crossing the river. We're taking care of skirmishers. I'm watching it in post now. I see now where the cav ran off to. I didn't wipe that cav unit. I was convinced I had, but I couldn't. Once I came back to look up, I couldn't see them anymore, and I'm wondering where they ran off to. Now I see they No, or maybe this is a different part of the engagement. Yeah, they're going to come and get a flank charge, and then that just sucks. They're Dragoon Cav, but they get a beautiful flank shot. I have to give them all the credit in the world for it. It's a beautiful flank shot into that unit, and then they charge and chase them across the river, and I'm like, oh fuck, if they get a cav unit into my backfield, that could be disastrous. I mean, shit. I'm doing exactly that on the Union left. I've got a cav unit in their backfield, and it is in fact disastrous. So I'm nervously like watching, like, okay, can we stop them? And thankfully, 7th is able to quickly wheel, drop a volley, and then wheel again, without eating too much flank fire in the process. But they blunt the attack. All right, so I have my right hook is now blocking the Confederate line of retreat. And so, yeah, it's a thing. I'm still just grinding down the main army in the trenches on the right. I'm just continuing to shell them. Counter battery units, howitzer units, just every artillery piece I've got. I figure I've got all the supply in the world. Why not blast away? Why not get the kills? Why not get the experience? Why not get the skill upgrades or skill rank ups? So I'm just blasting. And some of these units are starting to really feel it, just the combined effect of long-term artillery barrages. Each individual barrage, not very effective, but across, I think, 12 artillery units across the entirety of the battle, it adds up. And believe it or not, they're still trying to take the trench works and just paying out the nose for it. But hey, by all means, I am more than willing to allow them to attempt. Got a supply unit. And I'm surprised to see them coming out to meet me in the open. Again, on the right, or on the Union left. A brigade, later on a 2nd and 3rd brigade follow it out. They meet me in open field battle. And one of my units gets bloodied pretty heavily, but I just, I get flank shots at rifled units. There's not really any other way to look at it in terms of it's a disaster for them. Especially in terms of casualties inflicted. The work done. I'm frustrated that I don't win the battle in day one because I basically have to affect the exact same maneuver all over again. But what I'm liking about all the work done in day one is every kill here is a kill that helps, for day two. No, that said, they do get some reinforcements. But still, it's the army is significantly degraded from its day one self going into day two from the purposes of the Confederate perspective. It's actually not that bad off from the Union side. A handful of units have taken heavy losses, and I think one or two officers get wounded over the course of the first day. But the Union army is not much worse for wear. Whereas, an entire division is shattered. Individual units, onesies and twosies have shattered. Skirmisher brigades have shattered. We've captured multiple supply wagons. I think 3, 4 at this point. 3 probably. Those sorts of things add up ad nauseum over the course of an entire army and over 2 days of fighting. Yeah, sure, they're going to go into day 2 and they're going to get some reinforcements, but they have taken a huge number of losses and a huge amount of damage just to the organization of their units. So they come out, they shoot me. That one brigade definitely gets its shit pushed in. That sucks. but we keep moving up. We keep moving up. We keep hitting them from enough sides that they can't really get any kind of meaningful counteroffensive off. And it just kind of keeps on going. I'll tell you, especially these green troops, they really do so well in this battle. I can't wait to see how they do come. I can't wait to see where they are come Antietam, you know. Yeah, the Army's coming along really well. I'm very, very, very happy with the performance. The Cav division cleans house in the backfield at the closing end of day one. So we are closing in on probably the latter part of day one. I think unfortunately I don't have a really good way of telling how much time I have left in the video in this app, but we cause some havoc, we tear apart some units, we get to the place where I feel like maybe I could take the flag, but I don't. And actually, I think we are coming up on the tail end. So, hey, I will see you guys for day 2. This is the second Manassas or second Bull Run Union day 1. Couldn't be happier. Really couldn't be happier with how this went. This just went beautifully. It even went a little better than I expected it to. Some units here and there took some heavy losses, but by and large, it went great. This is Fiasco. I hope you had fun. I did, and I will see you guys in day 2. See you next time.